Hi there, and welcome to another edition of the 1% Better podcast with your host, Rob O'Donoghue.
No matter how many times I do this intro, I still never am sure what I'm going to say at the very start. So this one is started just like that. Welcome to this week's episode. It's episode 9, season 2, and it is with a world champion. And before I talk about the guest, let me just talk a little bit about the last week and all of that stuff that I like to do from time to time. So the episode we released last Friday was with Jim Breen, and some of the stuff I got back from folks that have listened to it have come up with words like powerful, inspiring, meaningful, things like that. All good stuff, really nice to hear, and thanks to Jim for his time and thanks for his help promoting it. It's been one of the most listened to, certainly obviously in the last few months, but overall, and it's definitely one of the ones that I enjoyed listening back to myself the most. In the week, it's grown and grown, probably because of the weekend that was, and for those in Ireland and the UK, I think it was a holiday in both, and that would have probably had people less connecting into podcasts and more out enjoying themselves. Although you can do the two at the same time, it seemed to be a steady, slow burner, and that is great. So again, thanks for that one, Jim. And if you haven't checked it out, as always, go back and have a listen. It's there. On Monday, I released the 4th episode of 1 Minute Monday, the 4th little 1 minute clip. Generally tie it back to something that came out of an episode that just went past, like the one with Jim, but not always. Some other ones coming up that are from episode in the past, or just general stuff that I do myself around productivity. So I'm going to share the next one on Monday, obviously. Please keep checking that out. It's going down really well, and I'm hoping to actually get a few potential 1 Minute Monday contributors to do their own 1 Minute Monday tips in the future. For those of you that subscribe to the newsletter, I would have sent out email during the week around this whole GDPR, which is coming into effect on the 25th of May, which is to protect your privacy and data protection. All good stuff like that. If you haven't heard about it, it's mainly a European initiative. If you're listening outside of Europe, you may not have, but it's kind of a big deal, and I've sent out the letter, the email even, to everybody to opt in if they want to continue getting that newsletter. If not, you can unsubscribe there, and I'll take you off the list. And I think based on the rules, for those of folks that don't do anything with that email, I will unsubscribe them on the 25th. Probably a bulk unsubscribe there. If you are listening, if you have that email, if it's probably gone to spam or one of those folders, check it out. I'll be sending a few more reminders. It'll be on the website. There's a link in the show notes as well, so maybe just check that out. And if you do want to continue getting that once a week email, typically with all the stuff that's going on, please update your subscription details there, which would be great. Okay, and I've also talked about other stuff that I like to do in the near future. The 864 podcast that I keep talking about, I'm coming very close to identifying a date for releasing that. It's the 1st or 2nd week of June for sure. I'm going to spend a couple of days over the next week or two, probably at weekends, to edit a number of those episodes and just try and figure out how I'm going to release them. As I said, they're 15 minutes long. I have some really cool guests lined up already, recorded, ready to go, and we'll probably release a number of shows over the course of a few days and see how that goes and see what the reaction is like. And I'm definitely excited about it, so that should be good. Just in relation to the last 5, 6, 7 episodes, the numbers have doubled in size. As you might have seen some of the posts I put out, we were again doing well in the iTunes charts, which is great. It just means that we're getting into the ears of more people. Just really thanks to you for listening, for coming back, and from probably most importantly sharing it in your own networks, doing likes or retweets or leaving comments or putting a share out on LinkedIn or Facebook. All of that stuff makes a huge difference. It helps me extend the reach of the podcast. It means some of your friends and family and colleagues get to hear some of the really good episodes that we're putting out, just like the one with Jim Breen, that could absolutely make a difference in somebody's day or something going on in somebody's head that could unlock something for them. Lots of somethings, but very beneficial if you just take a few minutes to do that, to rate it, to subscribe on iTunes, help it go up further, to do anything you can just to help promote it. I'm doing this obviously as a one-man band, and trying to figure out the socials and how to extend the reach of it is a learning all the time, but it's a really cool one. And yeah, I think it's all down to you guys for helping me extend it. So that's the shout out for getting extra listeners, and I think I've covered all the other stuff that I've bulleted here that I rarely go into much detail on, and I know I'm rambling again. So this week's episode is with Olive Loughnane, who is the 2009 world champion for the 20-kilometre walk. Olive is originally from Cork. She moved to Galway, grew up there, went to school there, went to university there, then moved back to Cork in her early 20s. It was a very interesting conversation. We had it about 2 months ago, and as somebody that's massively into sport, into all types of athletics, running, cycling, it's sport related, and obviously sports psychology as well, it's massively interested in. It was fascinating to talk to somebody that had literally walked the walk. Sorry about that, but she really did. She, from a relatively young age, started to develop a huge talent for athletics. Initially cross country, then started into the walk. A lot of good influencers along the way. Started to take things more seriously, and then was in a circle of people, I suppose, that were high achievers, goal setters, and it became almost the norm for success and Olympics and events like that to come her way. Lots of really good stuff in it. I urge you to maybe take out a pen and paper and write some notes. It's a lot about goal setting, a lot about analytics, and absolutely a lot about determination, guts, and just knowing that your day is going to come if you keep putting the grind in. Fascinating and great to talk to somebody that's done such an amazing achievement like a World Championship gold medal. So enjoy the episode with Olive Loughnane, and I hope you have a great weekend and a great week ahead. Thanks so much. Good luck. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the 1% Better podcast, and in this one I am delighted to introduce Olive Loughnane. Olive, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Rob. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, and I'm looking forward to chatting to you about your career and some things I suppose you've learned along the way that might be beneficial to share. I did a bit of research, and obviously you've multiple Olympics under your belt, 6 World Championships, a World Champion in the 20k walk in Berlin, and Athlete of the Year in 2009, and recently I think I saw you got Hall of Fame winner at the Southside and District Sports Awards. That's probably right up there, is it?
Yeah, I guess I'd say I was one of the younger recipients. It was certainly a pleasant surprise to get around Christmas time there to hear that I'd been selected.
A Hall of Fame winner, so that's really nice to get. You're originally from Cork, but you moved to Galway when you were quite young?
Yeah, so I was born when I was 4. We lived in Douglas until I was 4. Actually, I was born in Cork here, and then I spent my school years and I did my degree in Galway. And then I moved to Cork now and came back to Cork in around 1999, 2000. So I've been here since. So I'm longer in Cork now than I spent out of Cork. So I am.
You're back for good at this point. So I went to university in Galway myself from, I think it was 96 to 2000 maybe. And
we must have passed each other in the corridor. So.
On the concourse, or probably in the library, or not, maybe as the case may be. Yeah, I'd definitely like to get to your journey in college and training and that. Question I like to ask folks at the start of nearly all of these episodes is when they think back to when they were extremely young, and maybe even what their earliest memory was. What comes up when you think of maybe some of your earliest memories?
Well, I suppose in terms of sport, I wasn't a standout achiever or anything as a small child, but I was very determined. I was one of a large family, so I guess I remember my brother, who's one of my earliest memories is feeding my brother. I'd say I was very young at the time. Only about 2.5 or 3. And then in terms of significant events, I can remember the boycott of the Moscow Olympics.
Wow.
So don't really remember the Irish performances. It's the boycott I remember. And obviously it was a difficult time politically. So it would have been around the time of the hunger strike. So all of those things are kind of points that I remember.
Right.
In terms of national events, yeah.
And it's funny that it's an Olympics that would stand out. Was
1980?
That was 1980?
Yeah, it was 1980, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I remember, vaguely remembering the boycotts and asking what the boycotts were about, because I did understand the Olympics at 4.
Right.
But wondering what the boycotts were about.
And even from those early years when you were starting to form and remember things, was sport on the horizon, or what did you want to be, I suppose, from those early stages when you were growing up?
I think I wanted to be a nun at one stage.
Oh.
Yeah, so had a lot of various different things, like any child, I guess. It just things, life moves about and stuff. So sports was, I suppose, more about friends and having fun than anything, and wasn't really involved in formal sport as a young child because I grew up in Ireland in the 80s, and I know certainly PE was certainly not something that was available to us in school when I was growing up. And I think the boys got to kick a ball and the girls got to do some knitting at the same time. So that was Galway. So
right.
Yeah, so no, I mean, obviously I had a wonderful national school, but certainly I suppose sport wasn't something I was really taught about, or physical activity. But then I guess there wasn't the same need to think about it either, because children were just more naturally active, and it wasn't about, formal activity, because kids just were out and about more,
That's interesting.
I was never one of those kids that watched television though, so I'm thinking that even if I wasn't, so I'm thinking if I was, if I had grown up in an age of iPods and iPads and technology, that I probably would still have been just an active child. Right.
And you mentioned your brothers. I interviewed a lady last season in this, Lieutenant Roberta O'Brien. She was one of the first female in the Irish Navy, and she was from Tipperary, and mentioned when she was growing up she had older brothers and would have played hurling and football with them, and she was the first female on the boys football team when she was 12 in secondary school, so they were a big influence. Were your brothers influential to you, or were they younger or older, a mix?
In terms of sport? No, not really. I'm the oldest of 7.
Okay.
So, we were steps of the stairs, and I suppose some of my family are nearly equally split in that some of us were really sporty. And but the sporty brothers came later. I mean, we were great buddies and stuff. In terms of, and I've heard Reid Corkery talk about playing with the boys team, but at one point I did try to go on strike and play football with the boys instead of the knitting, but I got a rap in the knuckles for that. So no, I wasn't. I just loved, I suppose, being outside and being out and about. And my family are a huge influence on me and continue to be so. And we're quite close. One of my brothers has severe autism, and he came third in the family. So I guess that, changes things a bit within the family as well.
Right. Okay. That definitely would change it. When did you start maybe developing a bit of a flair for athletics?
So I always wanted to do athletics, but the opportunity didn't really present itself till I went to secondary school. So that was when I was about 12. And I just loved athletics then. Now, that's not to say there weren't some really good people. And, I talk about not having the opportunity to play sport in my national school. But then one of the teachers in the school started camogie outside of school for us. So certainly there's a lot of inspirational people along the way, and people who just, wanted to do the right thing and were very supportive. And I always think about people who made a difference in my life in general. Mm-hmm. But the impact that one person can have can be so great.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's a really big thing. That's why, I know it's so hard, and I know myself, life is so busy. But I wouldn't have, how the opportunities I had were not for volunteers. And, you don't have to change the world. You can just make a difference to a few people. And certainly I had good people around me. So I did lots of things. I was in Girl Guides. I was in Scouts when the Girl Guides were no longer. So yeah, I was an outdoorsy type of child, all right. So I was, and I would have thought nothing of, cycling. Loughnane is about 10 kilometres from us, so I would have thought nothing of cycling in and out to Loughnane, maybe twice in one day. So I guess I had a bit of a cardio base without trying to create.
And do you remember in those early years, as you were starting to maybe dabble in different events or different sports, when the walk started to become something you thought you could actually go after, or was it later on?
Yeah, no, it was later. I used to do cross country. I used to do anything that I could be part of a team, really.
Right.
And I loved that camaraderie and stuff. And just, I suppose, in terms of, I loved technical events, but most of the technical events are kind of power events. Now, I'm sure I'm not like a strong person, as in physically, I'm a slight person. And I certainly was as an athlete, very, very slight.
Right.
So I wouldn't have been cut out for the power events, power technical events, physically. But I just liked to walk because it was endurance based and it was technical. So, but I was I'd say I was about 15 or 16, and I really wasn't taking it that seriously. It was just part of, representing the club. Loughnane Athletic Club was my athletic club. And it was just part of representing the club and getting a few points, in competitions where you had to cover all the events. And didn't really take it seriously. So sport was more about the fun and the crack. And but then when I did start to take it seriously, I met again another volunteer, Michael Lane, and he said, you could actually, you should give this a go, And so I did. And again, as I say, someone who had a big impact on me, Michael.
And so that was effectively like a turning point. He could spot some raw talent in there. Was there anything specific he identified in you?
I suppose I had a bit of an eye of the tiger, I was always so determined, and it didn't really matter what I did. And I suppose that's something that's a characteristic and a personal trait that you'll always have. Yeah. So I guess he saw that, and I was technically pretty good as well. So, for sport, you do need some underlying ability and some level of physical talent, but it's as much about the mental tenacity and the ability to tough things through. And that was a really big thing for me. And the ability to, set big goals and even though you might be a long way away from them, to work towards them.
I'm very interested in goals. I do a lot of goal setting myself in my job, and just even doing this sort of stuff is kind of a goal. When you talked about mental toughness or that tenacity or that eye of the tiger, where do you think that came from?
I don't know. I mean, I just can never remember a time when I wasn't determined in pretty much everything I do. Sometimes I wish I could switch it off, be a lot more relaxed.
We'll get to meditation in a few minutes, don't worry. But
yeah, so I always set really high standards for myself, and that's, as I say, I don't ever remember not being like that. I was a bit late learning to cycle. There weren't that many bikes around the place, and I remember my granddad, my mum's father, bringing over a bike that had probably been her bike to the house, and he brought it over late afternoon, and by that evening I was able to cycle. It was just I'm not going to stop. There was no stabilizers. I'm sure I was about 7 at the time, so there was no stabilizers. There was a lot of pain, there was a lot of falls, but that didn't matter. I was determined to learn to cycle that evening. I couldn't wait until the morning. So there's little bits like that stick out in my head where I just want to get the most out of myself. And obviously it hasn't always worked out. And I'm trying to think now of anything that I'm willing to talk about, but it hasn't always worked out. But it was always about getting the most out of myself. It was the same in college. Of course I'd love to have been top of the class, but I wasn't. But I knew I couldn't have done any more.
Yeah.
And and that was fine too. You know, it was just knowing that I left nothing behind, or as when I was training, as I used to say, competing in sport, that I left nothing on the road.
Yeah.
And that I gave myself every chance. You know.
Mm.
A big thing as well, I guess, was like, you know, you can't control everything, but it was like controlling what I could control and influencing what I could influence and just accepting then the things that I couldn't change or influence.
No, that's cool. And a lot of the stuff you're talking about there, to me, sounds like stuff I would have learned, or you hear more and more in sports psychology and just psychology in general, or really pushing yourself. Were those characteristics or that kind of mantra being taught or trained to you in your early training days, or were those like words where you were saying leaving stuff on the road? Did you have that kind of mindset from those stages, or were you as clear on your objectives back then, or did that come as you just got more and more training?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I just don't remember a time when I wasn't like that. And I worked really, you know, I did a lot of work with sports psychology over the years with sports psychologist Canis Kennedy, based here in Cork. I worked a lot with him, and he was really good to me. And so that was one of his earlier clients, and it was just wonderful that I couldn't have done it without him, and that was a big thing. And I would have used other sports psychologists when I was away on training camps and stuff.
Sure.
But for me, sports psychology was about, I suppose, taking a step back and relaxing and learning to go with the flow. That was my greatest challenge mentally when I was competing, and possibly still is, you know.
And you mentioned the mental toughness, or even maybe, would you consider yourself a risk taker?
Not really, no. Calculated risk, you know. No, I'm not a big risk taker. So,
okay. Was there?
I weigh things up. I think a lot.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into analytics there, because I know you work with the CSO, so I'm interested in, is it an analytical type role you have?
Yeah, I'm a statistician.
Oh.
So, yeah, I guess. Yeah, I like my numbers. I like facts. That said, my role at the moment is as a crime statistician. So it's, you know, the numbers are given to me. It's trying to work with them and stuff. So yeah, I'm very analytical. At school I would have been a maths, accountancy, those types of subjects would have been my best subjects. But then I appreciate that not everybody speaks numbers, so sometimes it's about being able to communicate these analytics and make them meaningful for people.
I want to come back to that in a little bit, but just to go back maybe latter stages of secondary school before you went to university, was there a standout moment where you kind of stepped over the line to said, there's a breakthrough here, I actually have something that could go big with this? Does anything stand out when you think of that?
A little bit. I mean, I was athlete of the year in my last year in school. So when in my leaving cert year, I think that was a bit of it meant a lot to me at the time, and it made me think a little bit, oh gosh, this is a possibility here. But so that was one aspect of it. But I guess if I hadn't been given the encouragement to train a bit harder and take it more seriously, that might not have been enough, because obviously when you go to college, it's a change of lifestyle, and you kind of have choices to make.
Mm-hmm.
But the people I was friends with in college, I was quite a quiet individual, even though I'm quite outgoing as a person. But college was a bit of a shock to the system. I was 17, and I was, I suppose from I was definitely shocked to the system. I liked my course and everything, but I wasn't used to the hustle and bustle of it all. And there's a lot more hustle and bustle now than there was then. But so I guess I joined the athletic club, so I was a way to meet people, and I suppose they were the people that became my friends. So there was lots of fun along the way, and I certainly enjoyed college. But because I was with that group of people, it was normal to train. The other thing too was, I suppose, by virtue of the fact that, I met the national coach, Michael Lane was the national coach at the time, and he introduced me to other people. So I became great friends with Deirdre Gallagher, and this was in 1996, and she was going to Atlanta. and Julian Sullivan, who represented Ireland in the Olympics with me on two occasions. So I kind of, the people I surrounded myself with, or it's not the people that I surrounded myself with, but my friends were all people, it was no big deal to go to the Olympics. This is what you do. You train hard. There is a plan. You follow the plan. This is the next natural step. Okay. So it wasn't shrouded in mystery, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that makes sense. I suppose when you start surrounding yourself with people that are on the same path, doing the same things, it doesn't maybe make life so much more challenging, or I suppose the sacrifices aren't as big if others around you are doing the same.
No, they're not. No, they're not. There's two aspects to it. The sacrifices don't seem so big, and as I say, it becomes the norm. It's the standard that you're used to. So yeah, there are two sides to the coin.
So as you were progressing through that, was there ever a question in your own mind around your own self-belief or yourself? Was there doubt?
Oh yeah, I guess, I wasn't born thinking I was going to go to the Olympics, but again, it was kind of back to the analytical side of it. It was like, okay, well, the reality is here, if I can, so just to explain, the Olympics, you do a qualifying standard. So at the time, it was 1 hour and 36 minutes for 20 kilometres. So,
I was pretty you were still in college, were you, at this stage? Or?
Yeah, so I guess, I'm kind of fast forwarding a small bit. I finished college in 96. This is about 2000.
Right.
But the logical side of me went, well, okay, if I can do, 4 kilometre reps or 5 3-kilometre reps at race pace when I'm just doing a normal day's training, well, then I can string it all together and go for another 5 kilometres in a race situation.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, I didn't go out there going, oh yes, I'm definitely going to make the Olympics. It was more of a kind of, well, if I can do this, this is the next logical step. That's why it was about goal setting and about breaking it down. So like you had your long-term goal and then you had your medium-term goals, and then your shorter-term goals. And I got confidence from the training I was doing, but I was never it wasn't that I sat there totally self-assured, but it was a gradual building of confidence through achieving shorter-term milestones.
Right. Yeah, sounds like a proper project management approach to it, which would be my background as well. You kind of the concept of SMART goals, where you're kind of making them specific.
Yeah.
Was that the terminology?
Measurable. Yeah, I was. Yeah. It was a project, like any other. Obviously, and that maybe takes some of the romanticism out of sport. You see the honor and the glory, but behind it all, it is like any other job. You get that you have targets, you have goals, you have milestones, all of the above.
Yeah.
And they must be SMART. Yeah, they must be specific, measurable. I'm trying to think of the rest of them.
Achievable, time bound, and realistic.
And realistic. Yeah. Yeah. I suppose where the little bit of magic comes in is that you can, in sport and to achieve at a high level, your definition of what realistic is maybe a little bit different to somebody else's. You go that step further, and you have the confidence to do that and to set those targets for yourself. So I think that might be where that, as I say, a little bit of magic comes in, where it's like, oh gosh, yeah, that I can go further, I can do more. Why stop there? Attitude that comes in.
Yeah, but I definitely think that when you're training for Olympics or at a top level sport, there is obviously that extra level of talent and ability that a run-of-the-mill project manager wouldn't just be able to get into the Olympics, I think, by putting a SMART goal out there. I definitely wasn't anyway. As you were moving up the rankings, I suppose, and becoming more well-known and having better and better results, was there points where you'd find that you'd plateau, maybe? And
definitely, yeah, definitely. I mean, it wasn't an upward, I didn't
trajectory,
maintain an upward trajectory.
Going, yeah.
No. I definitely plateaued at different points. Yeah, and that again is where I suppose that tenacity comes in, and understanding. But it was about, okay, where did I go wrong? Okay, I'm really, really disappointed here, but where did I go wrong? How can I fix it? What can I do better? Are there changes I can make? I suppose going back to the project management terminology, like, is this a project in crisis? So yeah, like, what do I need to fix here? And very often there were reasons, and most of the time, in my personal case, it was because I trained too hard, and I made that mistake a number of times, and some of that was a bit of confidence really as well, like, oh, I can go hard, so let's go harder, I'm doing so well, when I should have been holding back for races. And, in the earlier years, maybe around 2003, 4, 5 maybe, I left some of it on the road, and I had my daughter Emer then in 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, so that obviously changed things as well, changed my focus, and I relaxed a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, but you were still able to come back and become a world champion, so I probably didn't relax too much. But when you were saying there, you were going out for those runs when you should have been holding back a bit. Were you like sneaking out and not telling your coaches at that stage, or was it?
No, I guess at one point I was training. Yeah, I didn't recognize, and I suppose the coach I was working with at the time, fabulous lady, a Mexican lady, her, and the system there would have been to train harder and harder,
Right.
And that just would probably suit someone who was maybe less hard on themselves than I was, but I was just so, if I can go this hard, well, won't I be doing even better if I go harder type of person. So I was probably someone who needed to be managed more and pulled in and told, given a target that was 10% lower than what I needed to be doing, because I was always going to exceed it anyway, So yeah.
It's fascinating. As the years went by as well, sports science became more, not just psychology, but the science behind it, the whole nutrition, diet. How did that develop over the Olympic years or the Olympics that you've gone through that time? And did that have marked impact?
Yeah, it did. I guess I started listening to the data more. So, if the heart rate was going through the roof, well, this is really not a good thing. And I used to also take little blood samples when I was training. So not unlike, I don't know if you'd be familiar with the blood samples that somebody who's diabetes takes.
I'm actually a type 1 diabetic, so I'm definitely
okay. Yeah,
too familiar with them, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, so those finger prick tests.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So I would be looking to measure the level of lactate in my blood.
Okay.
Which is, that if you're training hard, that's high. So, I would have had targets for different sessions and stuff, different training sessions. So it was about sticking within those targets. The
walk was an individual sport, but did you still feel that you were very much part of a team? Was that just the people you were training with kind of created that team mentality, or was an individual sport really best for you?
Some of it, I like the independence of the teams and individual sport in one sense, but in terms of, I had a team of people around me though as well. I was the one doing the work, and I was the only one that could perform on the day, but I couldn't have done it without, coach. I couldn't have done it without, I worked very closely with Dr. Donna Reardon. He's a great support to me. And I've already mentioned Canis. I worked with nutritionists. I worked with physios. I worked with Mary Glacier initially, and then with Brian O'Connell. So without those people, I couldn't have done it. I was so lucky to have people who were so supportive and who bought into the whole thing, and I suppose in one sense managed me from myself at times.
And obviously the closer they got to you and knew your approaches and ways, they probably got better at identifying when you need to be managed, I suppose.
And I haven't even started talking about my husband and my family, and my own daughter, and the fact that without their mental support or support in every way, it wouldn't have been possible.
Was there ever a time after any of the Olympics or events where you had set yourself this really BHAG goal? I don't know if you've heard the BHAG one, which is a big, hairy, audacious one, on top of our SMART goals, that you fell short and you were crestfallen and you felt, I can't go on? Or how did you pick yourself up after some of those?
Oh yeah, that happened in 2003, 4, 5. I had EMA in 6 and it happened in 7 again. So
Right.
yeah, definitely. 3 and 4, I trained too hard and just burnt myself out really. In 2005, I got disqualified at World Championships. 2006, I had EMA and it was fabulous, and I missed Europeans that year, obviously. But World Championships was in 2007, and I was a lot more relaxed. But in my struggle to get back fit, and I was under a bit of pressure, to be honest, at the time. You know, I'd been told that I would have to do. So I had EMA on in May, the 31st of May, and I had a cesarean section.
Right.
And I was told that in order to keep my funding, I needed to do an Olympic standard before the end of 2006. So I had 6 months to get back to doing an Olympic standard. And at that stage, the Olympic standard had been caught by about 3 minutes. So that was big pressure.
Right.
And, you know, so as you can imagine, I obviously put on weight during the pregnancy,
Sure.
Which was a healthy thing to do. And so I was back training after I had EMA, I think within about 10 days. That's after having a cesarean. So, and I was back walking within 6 weeks. So I was back in the pool, 10 days after I had her.
Good Lord.
So I checked, I got permission, if that's the right word. That would have been very healthy, I would have been swimming until the day before I had her, and
Right.
it was different to somebody who wasn't as fit and healthy as I was. But I burnt myself out then in 2007. I just trained too hard, too quickly after having her, and didn't perform as well as I would have liked in 2007. And I spoke with a journalist. I spoke with Greg Allen in the Mix Zone afterwards, and he was like, why do you keep doing it? What keeps you motivated, And you see, I still believed that I could do what I wanted to do. And
Sure.
I suppose it probably wasn't immediately obvious to the people who are watching and seeing me, finishing 13th, 17th.
Yeah.
But in my head, I was kind of looking at him going, but sure, I'm only halfway there,
Yeah.
Because I did have that deep down self-belief that yes, I could do this, and that was very important, that it didn't matter who else thought about it. I was always that person that surprised. It would have been a surprise that I made the Olympics in 2000. It would have been a surprise then. I raced really well in 2008, and I was the best Irish track and field performer in 2008.
Yeah.
I think outside the boxers, I was probably the best performer. So again, these are all surprise. They were surprises to other people, but not surprise to me, because I knew I could do it. It just needed for things to work out right for me.
Yeah, so the self-belief was there, and that's so important. Coming into 2009 then, did certain things go your way for a change as you built up to the World Championships?
Yeah, I calmed down a little bit with the training.
Yeah.
And I think finishing 7th in Beijing, and in Beijing I kind of, in a sense, ran out of road. I was the fastest of all the athletes over the second half. I was pulling people in, and I literally ran out of road. But that's no good. It's not a 21-kilometer race. It's a 20-kilometer race. Everyone, that's just, sure. I suppose, something a question that might always be there. But it made me realize that yes, this was definitely on. This goal was definitely something that I could do. It gave me a level of confidence, and I was in training camp in 2009 before World Championships, and one of the girls there had finished 4th in the Olympics the previous year. She was a Spanish girl, and I was just hammering her every day in training, you know. And when I went into the race in Berlin in 2009, at one point, you know, she started to get away from me, and I was like, hang on a minute now, this is just not going to happen. This is my day. This is my medal, and I'm going to take it, you know. And I was very quietly confident. It wasn't the type of talking to everybody in the media or anything like that. It was like, this is my day. This is not the way it's going to end here. You know, I'm not caught falling off the back here. And I made a very conscious decision. You know, I'm going to chase this down.
Yeah, it's amazing when, you know, I've never been in that situation, but just in some sporting situations or whatever, just some days, you know, and you have that internal calmness or belief. It's impossible to quantify confidence, but it seems like in so many instances that it has that massive, gives you that edge. Was that the main difference, do you think, in that race, or was there any other?
The calmness was probably one of the main differences. The just absolute, I'm here to do a job, I'm ready to do the job. You know, I won't say nonchalant, but almost, this is my job, I'm about to do it. That's not to say I wasn't hugely excited by it, but I was able to park that, you know. Like, I'd gotten over the excitement bit. I knew I was in a really good shape. Now it was time to just perform. And it was the same before Beijing. It was just this absolute calmness about it, you know. No matter what happened, like in Beijing in 2008, when I finished 7th, skies poured open, like, you know. There was really, really heavy rain, but it didn't matter what happened, you know. And I was like, oh, this is meant to be, you know. I'm able to compete in the rain. And then the temperature started at, I think it averaged 32 degrees when I competed in Berlin. And I was like, oh yes, this is the sun. This is meant to be. I'm good in the sun, you know. So like two totally different weather conditions. But I was just like, yeah, I always do well in this weather, you know. Right. So yeah, it's just that kind of calmness.
And the calmness then, so going back to the kind of pushing yourself and not being that calm, all of a sudden the calmness came. Was there anything you were doing different? Like meditation is something I talk a lot about on this podcast, and was that ever something that came into your repertoire or just ability to center yourself? Anything different?
Oh, I wish I could meditate. Maybe I need to talk to you.
Yeah. You can read. I'll send you links to some of the articles I wrote. It's a game changer. I've been doing it for about 3 years, and it's changed me a lot as well.
No, I suppose what I used to do was focus on the process, you know, and be aware that it was going to hurt. So I remember speaking with a sports psychologist actually before both of those races, you know, which would have been my really strong performances. And, you know, specifically before Berlin, I remember her saying to me, she said, you know, it's going to be really tough tomorrow. And I was like, yeah, I know, I'm ready. So it was that kind of like acceptance, you know. And there were mantras. So like, I know when in Berlin, I got into a medal position around 13 or 14 kilometers. You know, so I was like 2nd/3rd. Obviously, that the girl who crossed the line first was subsequently disqualified. So in fact, it was actually 1st/2nd. And like it could have kind of sat back, but I was like, no, I have to get silver now. I have to go for silver. And you know, then it was like I've got to go for gold. Sure. But like I couldn't walk another step once I was actually in a medal position. The enormity hit me for a few seconds, and I was like, okay, snap out of it. You know, it's time to move on again. And it was like I had this mantra in my last, and it was true. I suppose I made it true in a sense, but you know, my last 5K is always my strongest. You know, my last 5K is always my strongest, and I would have repeated this in my head as I was going along. And there was other kind of psychological tricks that I used, like, okay, I'm just going to go as far as, I'm just going to do another 100 meters. Okay, I'm just going to do another, you know, and it was just this breaking it down. And then the 100 meters got too long because I was fairly out of my ear at this stage. Okay, I'm going to go to the next Irish flag, or I'm going to, there was always some little target. So it was about those mental tricks.
Was visualization popular thing, or was it anything you ever had tried to do prior to a run or to a walk? I kind of did that a bit instinctively. It came pretty naturally to me. So I didn't visualize the result. I visualized the process. So, right. Okay, I'm going to walk like this, and I'm going to, be relaxed, and I'm going to have my shoulders low, and then I'm going to take a drink. And I would kind of do the race in my head. But as I say, always the process, because if I concentrated on the result, it kind of, in a sense, nearly pushed me over the edge and got me over, it removed that calmness with it. So, okay, this is the process and this is what I'm going to do. And I know, you read some of the articles and, certain people are critical of sports people saying, oh yeah, it's all about the process. But it actually is all about the process. And I can totally understand where these people are coming from. And I know it doesn't sound particularly exciting, but that's the reality, Yeah. We all want to imagine that, your heart is pumping, and all this. And to my internal shame, someone said to me afterwards, one of the journalists in the mix zone asked me, and very kindly never printed it, and I'm actually admitting it all now, but he asked me, was it inspirational passing under the Brandenburg Gates? And I kind of looked behind me and went, oh, there's the Brandenburg Gate. So I had done the circuit 10 times, and to me it was a road. Sure. And personally, and I suppose it's different, different people, I suppose some people probably need to get themselves more hyped up, but for me it was about keeping myself calm. Yeah. You say you laughed about not being able to meditate, but a lot of the time what you were doing was kind of meditation, in that you were completely in the moment and present as you were doing it, so much so you didn't even notice you were going, through the Brandenburg Gates. I guess that is a type of meditation in some way, believe it or not.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that. I saw the week after I watched the women's marathon race, just to continue on that example, I watched the women's marathon race, and my husband was with me, and he was like, oh, this is on television, and he said, oh, there's your course. And I was like, no, that's not my course. I don't recognise that at all. Yeah. Again, same thing. That it was obviously less remarkable than the Brandenburg Gate, but yeah, it was just that whole. And even during races, there were certain people that I sought out and that I listened to and that I heard, and I just focused very much on them, because people say all types of things to support you, but I focused on the ones that had most meaning for me and worked best for me.
Interesting. I'm conscious of time, Olive. I know it's a Monday evening and you need to get off in a couple of minutes. I just have maybe one or two more quick ones. We didn't dwell on the whole story around the 7-year wait to actually get your gold medal, which hopefully was worth the wait, but certainly probably wasn't the best way of going about it. One question: when you got presented with the medal, I know you were presented by Seb Coe. Did you chat with him, and had he anything to say to you around that time, or was there any nice words or anything that came out of that when you got presented with it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I suppose he'd raced a lot in Loughnane as an athlete himself, so the conversation was mainly around that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we knew a lot of people in common, actually. So we didn't really go down the political route, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we won't go down it there, but again, congratulations on it.
Prefer not to be honest.
Absolutely, no point going there. You talked about being very analytical, and a question I like to ask is around how you make decisions. I'd be much more intuitively good at deciding things. When those two come together, do you go with your intuition? Do you go with gut much, or do you always look for the facts and let them speak for themselves, the data?
It depends on the type of decision that's being made. I suppose in my job, I have to be objective. A lot of the work I do would be, looking at data and seeing whether it's robust enough to be publishable. And I have to stick with facts and figures there. So yeah, that's what generally guides me in a work situation.
And when you were
not
competing,
to say I don't have guts, I've got feelings as well. And sometimes you do have to make a call. It's like that split-second decision you make if you have to brake suddenly in the car, or you're in a situation where it's fight or flight,
Yeah.
And sometimes gut does take over, I trust my gut as well, but in terms of in a work environment, it's generally very analytical, data-driven decisions that I make. And it is about, looking at the facts, trying to find the linkages between different pieces of information and a certain element of research, obviously, and, is part of my work as well. But, the facts and looking at best practice internationally.
Okay, cool.
I'm not making it sound very exciting, am I?
No, it's all good. It's interesting. Has your approaches to goal setting changed since you retired, and what ways do you look at goal setting now in life?
I'm still a planner, I'm still a planner. The thing about sport was you had more control over the outcome. It was dependent on you. And I had a great team of people around me, but I had, obviously a greater impact on the outcome. So, now in terms of other situations I'm in, it is about bringing people along with me as well to, so that something becomes a shared goal.
Sure.
That's a big part of things now. And I guess as I get older and mature, that comes more naturally.
Yeah, I hear you. It's still difficult to relinquish control to certain tasks. I can feel as well, you can
yeah,
tell me the
I am
truth
a
as
bit
well,
of a
so.
control freak. So I am. But, there comes a point when, we all like to think that nobody can do without us, but,
Yeah.
most people, have skills that are replaceable. That's the reality.
Unfortunately, yeah. Have you stayed involved in the sporting world since you retired? What's your level of involvement in it now?
So I'm on the high performance committee on Sport Ireland. So that's a subcommittee of the board of Sport Ireland, and it's responsible for strategic direction of I suppose the funding and the way structures are put in place. And it's very different looking at it from that global perspective. As an athlete, I was a recipient of funding. But it's a challenge, knowing what I do about, how difficult it is to compete and how difficult it is to get funding. But again, I suppose that's a good example of where I have to combine gut and cold hard facts,
Yeah.
So it's an art, not a science, in a sense.
Okay.
And, I often use the example of myself that I didn't fit the profile. I wasn't, you could have analysed me and decided that I wasn't worth a punt. And, if I hadn't had the opportunities. But at the same time, you do have to be systematic and you do have to put systems in place to give as many people an opportunity as possible. So that's what it's about. As I say, big change. But I suppose the experience I have myself is useful in informing the way things are worked out.
Yeah, no, I would say it's exactly as you described it, having the experience of being the athlete, but also having that really statistical, data-driven mindset puts you in a unique position, I would say, to be able to give strategic advice there. So it sounds like both your careers kind of converge nicely to that role.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, a lot of people helped me in a lot of ways. In terms of actual coaching, that's quite difficult at the moment. I have very young children and I work full time. So this is my small way of giving back for everything that was done for me over the years. And I'm sure in time I'll have, as my own children grow a bit older, I will have a chance to get involved in different bits and pieces.
If one of your kids turned around and said, Mummy, I want to do the 20k or 50k walk, I think there's a 50k walk now, is there, as a sport? Would you be very supportive and back them?
I mean, this sounds like a cliche, but I'm going to support them in whatever they do, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, and obviously sport might not have any interest in sport, and that's fine too, but I will, encourage them and support them. That's a nice way of saying make them be active.
Sure.
Because I do think that's very important. And that, I am all about bringing them outside and putting on those wetsuits and, getting out there no matter what the weather. And some of that's a bit of a selfish motivation, I think, because I spend so much time in the fresh air myself for so long. I myself need to be out and about and in the fresh air. And what better way to do it than splashing in puddles with small children? Yeah,
well, it might be selfish, but it's a kind of a good selfish as opposed to selfish and keeping maybe them indoors, as you said at the start, hooked up to all sorts of devices and gadgets. So it's probably the better of two evils there, if the other one isn't evil at all.
Yeah.
So that's it. I really appreciate the 50 plus minutes we were chatting to this evening, Olive. I really enjoyed getting a little bit of an insight into your world. I hope it wasn't... my goal is sometimes to ask questions that aren't the standard ones or regurgitating lots of stuff you've gone through before. So hopefully we touched on a few things there.
Definitely very interesting. So it was an interesting 50 minutes from me too.
Cool.
Thanks so much. You might send me on some of those links that you spoke about.
Around the meditation?
Now that I know that I've actually done a little bit of it unknown to myself.
I would say you've, as I said, I'd say out of the 50 episodes I did last year, I talk about meditation nearly every single one, but some people are hardcore meditators, some that were Olympic swimmers, from a guy I interviewed in the US, and they were swimming 5, 4, 6 hours a day, and effectively when they were just staring at the blue line and focused on that, they're really focused and present. And meditation can take many different forms. It's not just sitting with your legs crossed and umming and oming and all of that good stuff. It's just being able to focus. And I think anyone that's high performing and got to a high level like you effectively was so focused and clear on your objective as you were going through it. You were in the moment, and I'd say that's as you stop that, it's kind of what do you do to replace it and to kind of keep that going. So yeah, meditation might be a good thing.
Okay,
all right, Olive,
good to talk to you.
Yeah, nice to talk to you. Have a lovely rest of evening and a good week, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, take care then.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Good night. How was that? Did you enjoy it? I hope so. If you did, please like, share and do all that other good stuff that only takes a second on social media but means an awful lot to me as it spreads the reach. You can get the details from the show in the show notes on the website robofthegreen.ie. In there you can share the show out with others. I really just want to touch on 3 other quick things. 1, feedback. I learned so much from it. Without it, I can't improve. Please give me a bit of feedback, positive, negative, constructive. Would you recommend a book? Do you have any other ideas for guests? How about more video? Let me know what you want and I can make it happen. I will try. That's number 1. Number 2, sharing is caring. This year I'm making more of an effort to try and expand the reach. Facebook, there's a page and there's a group. The 1% Better community on Facebook is where I really hope new listeners go to share ideas, comments, in general things that they could help others with. That's what it's there for. Follow me on Spreaker.com. That's the new host. I'm on Twitter, growing not exponentially at all, but slowly. So please follow there. I'm on Instagram. All of these are at Rob of the Green. LinkedIn, Rob O'Donoghue. Get in touch. Would love to hear from you. Number 3 is about support. So I'm offering a few hours a month, pro bono, free coaching to those that can't afford it. that need some coaching, that want some coaching. If you go to the website, the support page, click on the pro bono link. On the flip side of that, where you guys can support me, go to patreon.com, the Rob of the Green page. You can make a donation there. You can get access to exclusive content, which I'm adding all the time. That would be awesome. Anything you contribute will go back into the show to make it better, make it more than 1% better. Also, there's the option to buy one of those books that were recommended through the website, which will bring you to Amazon, which will get you the normal links, which will get you the books at the normal price, but supposedly Amazon will give the show a small donation every time a book is purchased, or anything for that matter, which is great. So finally, I just wanted to say thanks so much for listening. I know it's difficult to make improvements, to push things forward, to get outside your comfort zone. I'm trying to do it all the time. I hope that every listen and every show and every guest that is on gives you something to take away that you could apply, adopt and adapt into your own life to create a new habit, to make something better. Don't overreach. Small improvements, 1% is enough. And thank yourself for making the time to listen to the show. It shows you're interested in learning, improving and getting better, even if it's just 1% at a time. Have a great day and good luck.